Hi, I'm Shawn Douglass, an actor and director in Chicago, Illinois, and also a member of the theater department faculty at Northwestern University. And this is An Actor's Arc. This episode features the exuberant Charin Alvarez, terrific Chicago actor working in theater, film, TV, voiceover. In this conversation, she shares her unique path to becoming the accomplished artist she is. Hi, Charin Alvarez. Welcome to An Actor's Arc.
Hello. Happy to be here. Nice to see you.
I'm happy to have you too. It's been a while. The journey that I like to follow in this An Actor's Arc starts with, what was the first thing that got you involved in the theater, woke you up to the possibility of being an actor, or what impulse did you have to be an actor or performer? I wonder how that came about for you.
Well, I came into acting very late. I just didn't think it was something that people that I knew did, or it was so far removed about for me. Like the actors that I knew of were like telenovela actors, soap opera actors. So those were the ones on TV. So I can't say that I thought it was inaccessible, one of those words. But it was just not something that anyone that I knew did. Until a friend of mine, Sergio Martinez, was taking classes up in Center Theater. I don't know if do you remember Center Theater? And, it was this really weird theater that also did classes. Weird in that it was like a box, and they just did really experimental works that to me were like so out there, not knowing theater. But so he was taking a class there, and he said, why don't you guys come see me participate in the class? And so we went, like a group of us, to watch him act.
Wow.
In acting class. Yes.
In the class?
In the class, yes. That I don't know how the teacher let us watch him, because we were like it was in a show, but it was just a class, beginning class. We thought he was so cool that he was doing it. Yeah. And we were really, really close friends at the time. And we hung out a lot. And then he said, why don't you come do a class with me? And I ended up, oddly enough, not doing that class, but that's the time where I was like, oh, people can do this. I want to do this. And then
how old were you then?
Oh, I was 25. I was about 25 years old. And before that, I've been doing everything, you name it. I was so lost. I worked at Brown's Chicken. I worked at London Undercover. I worked at an advertising agency. I worked at an auto parts store. I did all kinds of weird gigs. Not weird, just a variety of things, because I was so lost. But I was having a good time. And yeah. I just didn't have a path. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just having a really, really good time, but not making a lot of money. And someone else told me about this guy that needed actors for a play in Spanish.
Mm.
No experience needed. And of course, this is, we're talking in early 90s. So there was, you kind of worked for free.
Yeah.
Like that was the norm. Like everything you did, even for equity houses, if you were non-equity, you would not get paid. So I grew up in that era. But so anyway, I took this gig, and I was awful, just horrible. But I had one night where, because I didn't know what the heck I didn't know what I was doing. But it felt right. I just had a good time.
Yeah.
And I felt all these feelings that I think at that time I just didn't know how to express all these feelings, and it was a way for me to express all these feelings that were going on inside me, and I loved it. So I continued doing that while I was working as a secretary for R. Donnelly, up until I kind of had to decide. Like I couldn't. I was having a tough time going to. I was having a tough time just working, not pursuing theater more, because it was at work.
Was that because you had to be at work and you couldn't go to auditions,
I
or
couldn't
just?
go to auditions. It was a full time. It was, you had to be there at 8. You left at 7. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, and it wasn't. It was a great group of people. I was just not very good at it, and I wasn't very happy. I was not very happy, but I loved the people. Um, but so I decided to just find a hustle other ways instead of having a full-time job, which was really, really hard. Um, I just felt like this was my opportunity to kind of figure out if this was for me, if I, if it was, to give it a try instead of just kind of as a hobby.
So you came to that
Commit more.
place. Yeah. So you came to that place a lot of actors come to, right? Where you sort of hit a crossroads of between paying the bills regularly and having some sense of security, and then deciding to jump in fully, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it would be an easy choice, easy decision to make, but for me it wasn't. Um, but I found out that for me, uh, the instability and that the not knowing what was coming around the corner uh, was doable.
Hmm.
Like I was okay with not knowing. I found that I was made for that. I was made for not knowing if I'll ever work again. um,
That's a
and
fascinating discovery, because
yeah,
that's hard. That's a challenge for a lot of people.
oddly enough, I am okay with not knowing if what my next gig. The hustling gets a little harder. It does get harder as you get older, but I think because it's because for me it's been very slow.
Hmm.
It was just very sporadic. It
Mhm.
has always been like that. So I think because it's always been like that, um, I just got used to it. I could see how if you were working all the time and then you're not working, how that can be incredibly um, disorienting and unsettling. But for me, because it was very, very sporadic, there was a lot of scarcity. I kind of got used to it, and I was actually okay with it because I'm very fortunate to have a family, my husband and my kids, and extended family, and friends who are family. I've been friends with, like, my close friends. We have been friends since 12 years old, since I've been in the
Wow.
States.
Yeah. So can we go back in time just a little bit? So before you got interested in theater, can you just kind of provide the framework for, you'd mentioned coming to the States, and did you come directly to Chicago?
Yes. So my father, came here first and got a job as he was a factory worker, and then sent us over. But I will have to say we were very fortunate in that my story of coming to the States was fairly easy and not traumatic. Um, uh, I will say that when we were coming, we didn't know we were leaving the country. It was really weird.
Hmm.
I think I knew something big was happening, but I wasn't sure until we had to we were living in Mexico City, and we went to Zacatecas, which is northern part of Mexico, to say goodbye to my grandmother. And I remember my grandmother giving us her blessing and crying. And that's when I got an idea that something big was happening, but we didn't know. And then you didn't know if you were going to come back. Like, it was the plan was, I think, for just to go for a year.
Hmm.
And so I came with my mother and at that time, there was only 5 of us, my 3 brothers and sister, and with another family, my cousins and my aunt and my 3 cousins. So we went to Tijuana.
Hmm.
And we met the person who was going to cross us over. The interesting part about that is that back then, it was not digital or electronic, which benefited us because we just had to say we were American citizens.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Can you believe it was that easy? It was that. I mean, you still had to pay for the paperwork. It was not. I hope your viewers are not going to be offended. It was not real paperwork.
Sure.
So we got on a station wagon, and all of us in the station wagon to cross the border from Tijuana to Los Angeles,
Hmm.
to California. And my mom was begging us to not talk because it was like at midnight, because if we talked, they were going to know we were not citizens. So she begged us, like, pleaded, threatened us, bribed us, especially one of my younger brothers, because he was a little chatterbox. He's so darn adorable, but he was a little chatterbox. So my mom was like, especially looking at him. So we pretend we're sleeping. We cross the border. We pass. The guy lets us go. My brother, who's a year older than me, out of nowhere, and he's the quietest, out of nowhere, yells, "Viva Mexico!" "Viva Mexico!" And we're like, shut up, shut up. And the funny part is that he's the quietest. Like, he never talks, ever. So that's how we crossed, and we came straight to Chicago.
Gotcha.
Um,
So I brought that up in part because you said that first play that you auditioned for, they were looking for Spanish speaking actors with no experience, right?
well, you know what? They said no experience because they really couldn't get anyone with experience.
Mhm,
It was
mhm.
so um, Not that they couldn't get anyone with experience. It was new. So it was something new. So they were kind of
Do you-
teaching, training, and it was in a church. Um, it was it was like a bunch of odd, like the group was just a lot of people from different, you know, uh, backgrounds, just kind of meeting um, and rehearsing, but we didn't. None of us knew what the heck we were doing. Just we were just like, saying the lines, um, and figuring it out as we went. And but I loved it, and I wanted to do more of it.
and by that time, I imagine that you were a good English speaker.
Oh yeah, yeah, yes,
And did
yes.
you have any English when you came to the States?
No, we came to Little Village, which is in the southwest neighborhood in Chicago. Most of the schools taught in Spanish.
Mm.
It was a lot of ESL, like mostly everyone
Uh-huh.
was ESL. But little by little, they were introducing you to English. So the good thing about that for me was that I was able to navigate both worlds. Like in school, it was English, and then at home it was Spanish, and all your cousins spoke Spanish or your friends spoke Spanish. So it was very normal, I think.
So, all right, so let's skip forward again. So you had this one experience where you felt like it was great fun, you loved it, but you had a sense that you weren't awesome at it yet.
Yes. Oh, I was very well aware that I sucked. But oddly enough, I didn't. I was like, I want to get better. I want to figure out how to get better.
So what
And
was the next step?
so then I took a class at. Someone told me about a class at audition studio,
Mhm.
like a commercial class, and it was fantastic because they gave you more of the business side, and how do how to try to get how to get auditions, how to find auditions. And at that time, it was, you would pick up the newspaper of Perform Inc. And you would just try to, I went to all these auditions. It took me a while to, get work. But I did. It was so. For me, I feel really lucky that it's been slow, but it was very gradual,
Mhm.
and I think, in a way, it benefited me because um, it was in increments. So I didn't get I wasn't at I didn't get like a big part in a big theater company. I think that would have probably they would that probably would have not been for me. I think for some actors, I just admire actors who can take these leaps and succeed and thrive. I think for me, it worked in it worked for me that it was all incremental and it was very slow. So for me, it worked. I saw Zoot Suit at the Goodman,
Mhm.
and it was one of the first shows where I saw Latinos on stage.
Mm.
And that, I was like, and they were so good. And they were so good. This was at the Goodman, at the old Goodman. I
Huh?
think
The
it was,
Goodman Theater.
yeah, the Goodman Theater that was by the lake. I can't
Mhm.
remember what street. It was and Henry Godinez directed it. Sandra Marquez was in it. Sandra Delgado was in it. Eddie Torres was in it. It was a who's who of people in that show, and my heart. I couldn't clap. I couldn't laugh hard enough. It was like, it was it. I it blew my mind to see that. And then they did Cloud Tectonics, which was another in their studio. And Marisela Ochoa was in it. And the guy from 21 Jump Street was in it. No, not 21 Jump Street, from 90210. And that was like what got people in the theaters, because the guy from 90210. And
can I ask you why that was important to see Latinos on stage?
You know
Why
what?
that was...
I sadly for me, I didn't grow up seeing theater. It was, I grew up with movies and telenovelas and television. In telenovelas, you did see yourself, but not so much in movies or TV. And I didn't grow up, I didn't really get a chance to see theater growing up. And now that I was interested in theater, I went to see theater. And I want to say most of the time it wasn't it wasn't Latinos, but because I didn't know any other, it was fantastic to see other people work. But seeing your people, I mean, that's, it's so inspiring. I think that's the difference. Like, I would admire them for what they did, but I feel like seeing your own people, it's inspiring. And also it led me to think that I could do that. I could one day, maybe one day I can be on that side of the stage. I think it was all subliminal. I don't know that I was aware of it, other than when I saw that show. It was so inspiring, and it was just a fantastic show.
You said the first class that you took was a commercial acting class, right?
Yes.
Did you find work in commercials or on camera, or did you start more in the theater, or how did that?
I actually, oddly enough, did a lot more in indie films, and I loved it. That I love working on film. Films that never saw, sadly, never
saw the light of day.
No. No, some did. Some made it to festivals, mostly. Some never did. I did a lot of student films, you name it. But it was a slow progression. And then I got an agent, and I was able to, oddly enough, more work in voiceover, in Spanish. Because at that time it was it wasn't as how it is now, where the advertising company would have to hire someone in the city. I mean, it was completely different. We got to really know the advertising people, and they would just cast you over and over. And then you had I had some regular gigs for Montgomery Ward, Toys R Us. I was playing the mom for a while, the giraffe mom. Yeah, and that was a lot. That was a lot of fun, and it was. So it's been, as you can, you're getting an idea that it was very it was, my trajectory has not been very linear. It's just trying to figure it out. Where's there's work, that's where I went.
And so what did you learn, if you did learn something from that kind of voiceover gigs, those voiceover gigs? Was there useful stuff in there to think about how to be on stage or how to play a character? What were there connections to be made there, or were they totally different?
I think it's such a intimate medium. that what I did learn is that you have to be good at taking direction and right away and trying to
Mm,
figure out what the director wants, because most of them are not directors. They just write the script, and they know how it should sound in their head, but explaining it to someone, it's a whole different set of skills that I don't envy, and that I admire people who are really good at it.
mhm.
So the beauty about what I think I got from it was trying to deliver on what they have um, in mind of how it should sound, and trying to translate what they're saying into something I could do. And you had to do it right away,
Mm,
because it's you're there for 2 hours at the most, and if you don't deliver within the first half hour, they fire you. They call in another, I mean, and they let you know. So you do have to be quick. You learn how to be quick at trying to figure out what they want. Um, so I think that was incredibly valuable. And the beauty is that with time, you got to know them.
mhm.
So then it became, like seeing them was fun, um, which is always great. Like when you get to work with people over and over, there's a
Sure.
familiarity and there's an ease. And I feel like um, when you're relaxed, when I'm relaxed, I feel like I feel that I can do better work. So I found that when there was someone that I was like, oh, I'm not going to get fired because they fired me 3 times before. So I felt there's something about there's something about um, an relaxed atmosphere, or that makes me work better.
So you said in theater that were grateful that you didn't um, jump right into huge roles. So how did that progression work for you?
I lucked out because I became an ensemble member with Teatro Vista in 1998. And for Teatro
And
Vista, they did
what's their mission, Teatro Vista?
it's a theater company uh, by Latinos for the Latino theater community. Latino playwrights, Latino actors for the Latino theater community. And while we didn't produce a lot, we were incredibly close,
Hmm.
and it was like a really positive um, community, a group of people that we loved being around each other. What we did do is a lot of workshops and readings. They just didn't have the money, so what they did do was a lot of new plays,
Uh-huh.
which I love. I love workshopping new plays, and I love being part of a new play and getting to meet the writer and all that. So that they did do.
Why is that? What do you like about that?
I love the whole process. I love the collaborate. I mean, you're there to serve the writer, um, but the whole experience. It's like they change it, or you say something wrong, and then they're like, "Wait, that sounds better." Um, and then they're trying to, they sometimes they say, they ask you like, "Well, what do some input on," and then sometimes they know when it doesn't what they had in mind. Once an actor says it, it's not translating, so the reworking. um, and also the other thing was that because there were all these new plays and these new young up and coming playwrights, we got to do some opportunities to do roles that we've never done before, and really out there roles. So you get a
Hmm.
chance to experiment, and in to do these characters that, you know, were so different, and with this young voice, and they were really experimenting. So that was a lot of fun. And the other great thing is that uh, it was a really nurturing environment, in that when they would cast you, if you they would teach you as well. So they were kind of teaching for me. So I feel like that's been my school. Is Teatro Vista has definitely been my school, and I feel really lucky, in my opinion, that I got taught by some of the best actors nationally.
Great.
And not only seeing them work, but also, like, if they saw me struggle, they would give me insight, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I all I knew is that I had to feel all these things, and then would freak out if I wasn't feeling all these things. And then they would be like, okay, well, this is, if that happens, this is what you do.
So many people now are trained in school, right? But to be trained really
On stage.
on stage as a kind of apprentice, right?
Yeah, you know what? You're right. It was very much like that.
It's the way things used to be done in the old touring days.
Is that true? Oh wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's how it happened to me. I'm gonna say that I was an apprentice. So I feel really lucky that I had hands-on experience, as you know, and I can't say that it was. I would. There's easier ways to do it. I think if you can get it in school, get it in school. Because the difference is that then you have to do it in front of an audience, and sometimes fail. You know, you're learning, because keep in mind that for small theater companies, yeah, 2 weeks of rehearsal, 5 previews if you're lucky, and then 6 weeks of performance.
Yeah.
So it was.
And what did that feel like to feel like you were failing and survive that?
Well, incredibly grateful, because to this day I have this, and I hope one day it goes away, that I'm gonna get fired. I'm like, yep, this is the gig, or this is the show that I'm gonna get fired. This is the one, because I have no idea what the heck I'm doing, and trying to figure it out. And I will say though that the feeling of that one night where it feels like what you like what you just said, like I figured it out, it was unlike anything. And I've always, I feel like we're always searching for that. We're always like, because it is so, you come out of there and you leave the stage, and it is so fulfilling to feel that I think that was okay. I think I did okay, because most nights, I don't know if this happens to you, but most nights, you're like, oh, that was not very good. That was not very good. But I feel like the older I'm getting, if I say that, I always think, now I think my follow-up thought is, but there's tomorrow. So it's not so dire for me now as before, where I just be brutal with myself. That's the beauty about theater, is that you get another shot.
Yeah.
You get another opportunity. And I don't know if this happens to you, but I feel like with theater, I feel like the last performance was like, oh, this is where now I understand what the heck I was like on that last show. We're like, oh, everything kind of clicks. And I'm like, darn it, I wish I would have. Why didn't I know that on the first performance?
Yeah.
The other thing I love about theater is uh, the rehearsal process.
Mm,
I love, love, love the rehearsal process. Dare I say, even more than the performing?
sure.
Uh, uh, for some reason, and I love. I love just being with the other actors, having just the whole process of rehearsal. I love. The difference between now and doing a show, say 20 years ago, especially in a smaller theater,
Hmm.
a review was extremely important. Um, so the actor certainly it felt that pressure
Mm.
that we had for the show to survive, to have an audience of any
Is that
kind,
in part because you were an ensemble member?
an ensemble member and of a small theater company where we didn't have a lot of money for marketing. So we
Or
relied
subscribe, or probably not many
we did not have
subscribers.
any subscribers. We did not have any money for marketing. So our sole way of getting to people was a review. So, and then on top of it, we only had 3 previews, and then we would have the reviewer come.
Mm.
And a review could make or break your show. For me, when I was doing shows where they didn't get reviewed, it was awesome. It was awesome because you didn't worry. You just did it, and you just hope hope for the best. And with the reviews, I think for me, and I don't know if this happens to you, but I'm very masochistic. I will latch on to the review that trashed me.
Yes.
And
I think
that
that's common. I think that's common among a lot of
I'm like,
actors.
yep, that's true. I suck. I suck. I suck. Even though there's other reviews that were kinder, you
Yes.
know, and you're like, nope. You gravitate to the one that says, you should never do. um, which is, it's so obnoxious of me to pay so much attention, right? Because at the end of the day, that should not be my focus. But for some reason,
It's a
it was.
very easy trap for us to fall into.
And every time I would say, "This is the last time I'm reading reviews," and I would, if it would affect me. Um, if it's any consolation to the people that are listening, it does get better.
Hmm.
It You do become what's the word? You do take it
Resilient.
as resilient. Yes, you do become a little more resilient, and you take it as that person's opinion. But also going back to the new plays and with Teatro Vista and the ensemble, we did do a lot of really exciting new plays and new voices, um, and and for me that has been such a fantastic opportunity to grow as an actor.
Mm. Can I ask you about other moments that you grew? And I'm going to sort of just pose these questions, and you can respond however you want. But um, I just wonder if there was a particular production, a particular role, a particular director or actor in which something in your process opened up for you in a new way.
Yeah, there's been so the one that will always be close to my heart is Anna in the Tropics.
Hmm.
Just because the language, and to be part of to be, I played Conchita in Anna in the Tropics, and just to have been part of such a beautifully written play script, and I got to meet Nilo Cruz, and he just he was incredibly generous, and working with Henry directed it, and then working with Sandra Delgado and Sandra Marquez, which if it was up to me, I would work with them all the time, because it's just being on stage with them, you learn so much. And they're just, and they're also really good friends.
Yeah.
And I love working with them, because I always feel like I will learn so much, and I learned different things from each of them. But so Anna in the Tropics, just because it was just the exquisite writing. And the other thing that I loved about it, I felt like I grew as an actor, because it was a leading role. And I really, it was really, that role for me was really easy to get lost in, which I'm always, I don't know if this happens to you, like, there's, when you can really get lost in, it's the best, where you're not, you're not it doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like a lot of effort. It taught me that, because Chicago, you only do shows for a month. If you're lucky, you can extend it for 2 weeks. That one we extended forever, and I was worried that I would lose love for it. And for me, it turned out to be the opposite. We just kept extending and extending and extending. We even moved to a different theater, and I just kept finding more and more things. So for me, what I learned about that experience was that that you can still grow and find new things in a play for, say, 3 months. I haven't done anything more than 3 months, so I don't know what would happen if I had to do one for 6 months. But for 3 months, I found that I could do it, that I would not want to kill myself.
Thank goodness. Was there ever a role in which you thought, I don't think I can do this?
Yes. The role was Jocasta in Oedipus el Rey. I had worked with the writer Luis Alfaro before, and I love his language. I think I did Black Butterfly. I did Electricidad at the Goodman. And I loved being, he writes so well for women. He writes so well for women, and especially Latina women. He wrote Oedipus el Rey, an adaptation of Oedipus Rex. But in his version, Jocasta and Oedipus have a 20-minute nude scene. Completely nude.
20 minutes.
20 minutes. The language is so beautiful, but in that, but you had to be naked. But I had thought, we're going to be in bed, because it was after, and I thought, well, we're going to be in bed. I'm sure I'll figure out, how to, because I had never done nudity. And oddly enough, I confess that I'm a bit of a prude, which is odd for actors, because we're used to changing in front of everyone, but I'll be the person in the corner who is changing, if there's multiple people in the dressing room, I'll be
Mhm.
the one in the corner changing strategically. I'm not the one that's like, but so, and then we get to the first rehearsal, and then he was like, yeah, you're going to be in the floor and you're going to be in a turntable. And I thought, oh my God, on a turntable on the floor, like a lazy Susan. So they were going to be turning. And I thought, so during the rehearsal process, I was having panic attacks, like waking up in the middle of the night thinking, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And the beauty about that was that I thought not in a million years I could ever do that and not worry about my body and just deliver, be in the scene.
Mhm.
And I was able to do it. And for that, I'm ever grateful because I never thought I could do it. Um,
How was that made safe for you and comfortable for you, or what got you to that point?
it was slowly, slowly. Luckily, I think any other time we would have had to do it in rehearsal.
Hmm.
Uh, but the good thing is, I can't remember. I think it was the stage manager and also uh, uh, Adam Paz, who was Oedipus, the lead. We were both on the same page, so we were both like, okay, well, here are the rules. And before, I want to say, rules were never really like this. This was, I think,
This is
before.
before intimacy choreography.
Yeah,
Right.
this is, it was out. There was, you're on your own. The actors were on your own. You had to set your own. You had to set your own. So he was like, I'm not comfortable doing it in rehearsal. It's gonna be weird. And I was like, yeah. And so we asked the director if we can wait until we were in tech. And he was like, okay, yeah. He goes, he said, yeah, that's fine. Um, and so that's what happened. We did it in an invited rehearsal, right, like the day before preview, and they invited 60 or 50. The more you add, the more I tell the story, the more numbers are gonna. So if you ask me a year from now, I'm gonna say there's gonna be 1,000 16-year-olds in the audience. But so they were like 50 16-year-olds in the
Oh my
audience.
gosh.
16-year-old boys.
Hmm.
And we survived that. So then we were like, well, if we survive that, this is gonna be. So that's what, that it was kind of that, having to do a dress rehearsal with 50 16-year-olds.
Oh my gosh.
And surviving that, and then being like, okay, well, we did that. So I think all the other performances are not going to be as hard. So and it turned out to be that way.
And I love what you said earlier about having the beauty of this language that you were speaking, and have that to be able to engage in.
He wrote in my opinion, one of the most beautifully romantic scenes that I have ever read. That I think every woman, every man, everyone would want to have after the first time. Like, it was just so incredibly romantic. It's so I feel like I don't know if this happens to you, where while it might be frightening at the beginning, I always feel like at the end, I'm always happy I did it. I'm always happy I didn't chicken out. I do have another experience that I feel really helped me grow as an actor.
Great.
I the Goodman did a show called Pedro Páramo with this theater company in Cuba, Teatro Buendia, and it was going to be a co-production. And the way they work is so specific, and it's very movement oriented, very visual, but you use your body a lot. You discover your character through a lot of workshopping your body and figuring out. And I had never worked like that before. For me, it's always been.
What would that be like when you say workshop your body? What does that mean?
So she would have, as the character, she would say like, okay, now you're sad, now you're scared, how do you move physically, and very exaggerated, which felt, it was such a great opportunity. So the way it was worked was that first the director kind of had to feel us out if we were right for, because we were going to integrate with their theater company. See if it would be a good fit. So we did a 3-week workshop with them at Northwestern, by the way, with some Northwestern students, and just because it's a different language, and I mean acting like she was emotion, and it was just fantastic. And I loved it. I loved it. And that was for 3 weeks. And then I don't know, but I'm assuming that if we made the cut, we went to Cuba for a month. And I got a chance to go to Cuba and worked with them, continued developing the piece. Now we were developing the piece. And it was just great to work in a different way that I'm not accustomed to. And physically, just exploring, telling a story physically. So she didn't rely so much on words, but it was very physical. It was like, how do you tell a story physically? Through movement, which sounds very dance-like, but the way she did it, it was always through emotion. So it wasn't just this, just moving for the sake of moving. You had to put some emotion in it, and everything, like the way they work, it's very collaborative. Like she gives you what, the way she works is like she tells you what she's looking for, and then lets you figure out, like you with the other actors, like what can you come up with, and you present it to her, and she would be like, yeah, and she would, once we presented to her like what we thought would be work, then she would add on she would
kind of mold
polish it. Yeah, polish it and mold it. And for them it was also a learning experience, because they're used to working like for 2 years in a piece, and this time they only had 2 months, which for me was like, yes. We did a month in La Habana, Cuba, and then we did another month at the Goodman. So we went there, and then they came here. But for them, she's like, I never thought in a million years I would do a show with just a 2-month rehearsal period.
Wow.
And it was incredibly positive, incredibly loving. And it reminded me what it would be like if I went to school, because we would huddle and we would give each other energy. We would warm up together, physically warm up, vocally warm up. That was part of the performance. Before we did the show, we would have to warm up together. It was part of we would warm up together, physically warm up together, and she would have us do it. She would lead it. She would lead the warm up, and then she would lead the vocal warm up, And then we would do a circle, and it was, super exciting, super fun. And then we would do the show. And she always, which was always odd for her, that we would have a half hour, because there is no half hour. It's like you
Ah,
were ready when you were ready. And then always for her, there was always notes after, after the
so it
show,
was an
which I loved.
it was an
It's
ongoing process during the run.
which I love.
Hmm.
You know, I'm like, if there's, and she would see it every night. I'm like, if there's an opportunity for me that I can do something better that I just didn't think of. And the great thing is, especially, I don't know if this happens to you, but as we get older, we are looking for ways to get out of our habits, to learn to work in a new way, to somehow start fresh. And I will say the other great thing about working with them was that their ensemble, and it's incredibly physical. Like, I remember after the first rehearsal, the next day, I could barely turn left and right. My thighs were on fire. So it was incredibly physically demanding. Um, and I was grateful for it. Um, but the beauty about working with this theater company is that most of their, not most, um, some of it's been around for over 30 years, maybe now more. So some of them have been there since its inception. So they
Hmm.
were up there in age, and they could do it. And I mean, they just had stamina. So the great other thing that happened for me was working with seasoned actors, and knowing that I could do this into my 70s, 80s.
Ah,
And that was incredibly, um what's the word? It was incredibly, it was incredibly hopeful that I could possibly, if everything's okay, that I if that I can do this for a long period of time.
yeah.
That there's not a cutoff age.
I want to finish our time together with a little game that I play. It's a silly game, but it's called 3, 2, 1. The three is three actors whom you admire and a quick reason why.
Oh, that's easy.
Good.
Um, Three actors: Sandra Marquez, Sandra Delgado, and Tilda Swinton.
Ah,
Um, yeah, Sandra Marquez, just because uh, I mean, she has paved the way for all of us.
mm.
She is just, as an actor, I think she would be like the surgeon of actors, because she's so precise.
Mm,
I don't know how she does it. She just is so precise, and so she's just, the detail that she puts into everything, and she has an incredible ability to express what she's feeling in a very clear way.
great.
Sandra Delgado, what I love about, there's a lot of things I love about her, but what I mostly admire about her is not only she a fantastic actor, but she is one of those actors that is always looking at the next thing, like how she's always reinventing herself, and is not scared of change. She's willing to make these leaps from, started as a writer, and now is doing more. Started as an actress, and then decided I'm gonna start writing, and
Mm,
then did really well for plays, writing plays, and now is writing for TV.
mm,
So she's incredibly, just uh, fearless, and it shows in her work.
Ah,
She's really good at setting her ego aside and not letting the ego decide her next step.
and how about Tilda Swinton?
Oh, well, because I feel like for her, I I feel like she could do no wrong. Like if there's an impossible role, Tilda Swinton will make it possible. Most of her performances are incredibly still, very composed, and everything's internal. And then she can turn around and do a role that just seems like she's not in control of it, and it's believable. Like she's just, like her the words get ahead of her brain, and it's believable, and it's erratic, um and it's fascinating to watch. Like she can do those, she can navigate all these worlds, and well. So those are my three.
Two in our 3-2-1 game is a trick and a treat. So a trick is a sort of trick of the trade, and the treat is something that still delights you about being an actor.
A trick when I find myself wavering and I need to focus more. I do one or two things. If I find that I'm wavering, I try to look at the actor's eye, the actor's eyes, and I find that I'm like, even if it's a moment where I'm not supposed to, I that for me, it's a trick that for me helps me to uh, uh, stay more focused. And
And how about the treat?
the treat is when a moment where that always delights me is when you're something happens where you say it in a different way, where you didn't plan it. It just happens, and it feels right.
One of 3-2-1 is one thing that you still want to get better at, one thing you're looking forward to or you want to accomplish.
Oh, one. Okay, that's a tough one. One, I would love to be better at accents, at British accents, in specific, like your, yeah, UK. I'm so intimidated. Can I say another one that
Sure.
will never happen? But we're here and we're dreaming, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Be a better singer.
Ah.
Which will never happen. I'm horrible.
Charin, thank you so much. It's great. It's great to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, and it's great to talk with you and learn some things I didn't know about your journey. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. It was nice talking to you, and can't wait to see you in person.